I think the first images, while they may identify with the image, they're not sitting around wearing hoodies. They're not necessarily lone wolves. In fact, most of the time, not necessarily a guy either, all walks of life, and they tend to be very organized. If anything, they look like we do. They look like companies. They look like very agile organizations. They're well-funded. They have HR departments. They have all sorts of functions. So that image of, especially in the movies, is usually somebody with a funny accent who starts typing and hits enter and says, "We're done." Very flashy. While there may be many of those, or folks who wear the trappings, that's not what they're about. They're very motivated, very dedicated, and organized.
What do you think, Sam?
So I think that the really bad news here is how you find out that you've been breached is usually not because you've got a crack IT security team that's discovered it. Most breaches are discovered by third parties. You find out when law enforcement tells you. You find out when your credit card number gets used by a third party. You find out when your bank accounts have been drained. So it's not usually because you've detected the adversary on your network and have been able to contain them. That's obviously where most companies would like to get if they can't stop the breach from happening in the first place. But for the most part right now, we are in catch-up and response mode on cybersecurity.
I was going to say, it's worth unpeeling what a breach is a bit. We tend to use the word to mean many things, but there's a big difference between an infrastructure breach and either an information breach or abusive access. These things are slow. The attacks tend to move at a rate, the best in the world, move at about 4 to 5 systems a day. As they escalate privilege, shift systems, move laterally, scan. The goal is to go deeper, understand a network, and usually then be able to exploit it. But there's time in there. And to Rob's point, it's really hard to know if you've been breached. And there seems to be an impression that, not infrastructure breach so much, but the more serious, once it's been developed and actually used, the question is often, how has something bad happened and what does it look like? Because even when the external authorities find out, it's usually some telemetry is given about the development of access by the bad guys. The adversaries they know are in the networks, but there's a fog of war that applies. And so as you start to investigate it and you start to act on the system, you actually affect their behavior. It's a lot like submarine warfare. They'll go dormant, they'll go silent. And then the question is, what's the fact base? Have they got something? Don't they have something? How do you get control of the network again? It's worth unpacking that to some degree.